We're in Scie right now. It's one of those places that you see in pictures. It's pretty, but it's a lot bigger than I realized. It's still a very small town, but it's a lot bigger than I realized. When most people think about getting around and visiting places around Newfoundland, there might be a couple of places that you have in mind if you know anything about the different communities at all. And a lot of the tourism ads that are pretty famous, they focus on the culture and the heritage of the province. A lot of the times we think about places like Baie Verte and the whole Baie Verte Peninsula, the town of Trinity on the Baie Verte Peninsula, for example, or we think about the southern shore and the charm of the Irish influence on that region. Old St. John's with the Jelly Bean Row, the colorful row houses, that's front and center in most people's minds, whether you're in Canada or if you've just finally heard of Newfoundland for the first time. You probably think of that type of imagery. But one place that, even for myself, it just never really came to mind is the Baie Verte Peninsula. Recently, in the last couple of years, Scie, famous actor from Newfoundland who's had a great career so far, has really put some effort behind promoting the area, particularly the town of Burlington, which is where we are right now. I'm in Burlington right now on Baie Verte Peninsula. Beautiful little town. I'm on the water, got a cute little, I guess it's kind of like an Airbnb purpose-built accommodation for a couple of nights. So far, we got here yesterday, and it's the only place that we've seen so far. Definitely impressed with the town itself. You can kind of see the amount of push behind improving accommodations and things specifically in this town. And we're going to go and explore a little bit more of the peninsula today. Well, hopefully the whole peninsula today. Now, with that said, the weather is not good today, so we're still going to go and do everything that we want to do. The footage that I'm going to capture is going to be, literally and figuratively colored by the weather. So keep that in mind when you're watching it, but there's still enough to explore to make it worth our while. Some of the towns on the itinerary for today will be Scie, Fleur De Lys. There's definitely an obvious French influence, and the history of Newfoundland includes a prominent period where the French coast was a big part of Newfoundland, and one day I'll get into the history in a little bit more and explain it further, but you probably will notice the French names in some of the areas on this peninsula, and that is no coincidence. It's a long road to get to where we are, and we're only halfway up the peninsula, and then we're going to diverge. Once we get to close to the town of Baie Verte, I think it's at the crossroads, is a little bit before the town, but you can go in a couple of different directions to some of the other destinations that we're going to visit today. And those roads are pretty long. This is a big piece of land that people don't take the effort to explore this. So we're in Scie right now. A beautiful town. It's one of those places that you see in pictures. It's pretty, but it's a lot bigger than I realized. It's still a very small town, but it's a lot bigger than I realized. A lot more houses. It seems like we are going to go to Fleur De Lys next, which I think is a much smaller town. Baie Verte we're going to stop into as well. But we found a nice place for a bite to eat here called Critches. I'll let you know how that goes. I'm trying another fish and chips, of course, and then I'm going to get a bowl of soup to go with it. Give you my feedback after I eat it. Kind of excited to try it out. Really friendly service, I'll say, to start. This is a long trip up from the Trans-Canada Highway, but so far, even with this weather, I gotta say it's absolutely worth it. It's completely blown my mind just how beautiful this town is. When it comes to tourism in Newfoundland, or just getting around, whether you're living here or visiting, there is a big bad reputation for the quality of the roads, and in my experience, it's founded. There's definitely issues with getting around if you're driving a car. And driving up the highway to get to where we are right now in Burlington on the Baie Verte Peninsula, it was pretty treacherous. It's not the worst road that I've seen in the province, but it definitely is a road that is in need of some fixing. So just keep that in mind when you're traveling off of the Trans-Canada Highway, which generally speaking is pretty good. It's maintained as well as any road that you can think of. When you get off of the Trans-Canada Highway, just watch your speed. And not just, you hear about watching your speed for moose on the road. Yeah, always do that. But you don't want to blow up your tire because you're going too fast and you hit a big pothole that you see too late. There's a lot to be said for the town of Fleur De Lys, and I'm going to leave that for another video because it deserves the proper attention, proper respect. They've kind of been hit with another tragedy in 2023, only a couple of weeks ago actually, and then they're kind of well known in the province of Newfoundland for a big incident that happened over 20 years ago now, in 2000. And I focused on one particular location in the town with the video shoot this time around to introduce this place, Sam's Place, Samantha's Saltwater Joys Cafe, Museum. I'm going to get into it in much more detail in another video. But for now, if you're interested in learning about the incidents that I'm talking about in Fleur De Lys, take a minute and do a quick Google search. You'll find something from September of 2023, and you'll find something from Christmas 2000 as well. Two pretty big stories that are tragedies that are sort of associated with the town of Fleur De Lys, a beautiful town at the top of the road coming into the Baie Verte Peninsula. So we just got back from Scie, Fleur De Lys. We went down the middle arm for a bite to eat at a restaurant called Cozy Corner, something Corner, I'll remember the name. It wasn't a good day in terms of weather. A little bit cold, pretty windy, rainy at times, misty for sure. Really though, I like this quote I saw one time on a CBC interview with someone talking about traveling around Newfoundland, and they said they're not made of sugar. If it's a little bit wet, get out. Basically, I agree with that. There are circumstances where the weather says stay home out of it. I was down around Port aux Basques and Isle Mort and the southwest coast 4 or 5 days before Fiona last year. And I didn't really know if Fiona was going to happen quite as strong as it happened. And I'm not saying to just ignore the weather. And there's times where weather should keep you home, and there's times where the aftermath of weather should keep you home. But if there's a little bit of wind and a little bit of rain, I strongly recommend getting out of your house and exploring a few places, especially around parts of the island that you are interested in that maybe you just haven't gotten to. There's going to be a lot more weather coming soon that's going to really prevent you from getting out and doing much of anything. So now, the calm before the storm, so to speak, while you can actually get out and take advantage. If it's a little bit damp, a little bit windy, still try to get out. Don't wait for the sun. Now we're hoping that for the rest of this road trip that the sun comes out and the weather kind of agrees with us a little more than today. But we had a great day today. Scie is beautiful. I had no idea that it was as big as it is, and you could see there's definite prosperity happening in Scie right now. Lots of like new cars and well-maintained homes and renovated homes, things like that. Really interesting to see that. And if we stayed at our cabin because of the weather, we would have missed out. And when's the next time we're going to be back up here? Who knows? This is the first time I've ever been here. This is the first time I was here with my parents. This is the first time my parents were ever up here. So it took them 70 plus years to make it to Scie, to Burlington, to Fleur De Lys, to Middle Arm, right? So don't let the weather scare you too much. Try to get out and explore Newfoundland, even if the weather isn't perfect, because it rarely is.